Check, check. Hey, hey. All right. So, I've spent a little bit of time going over, making some notes about. Here, let's move some stuff out of the way. Um, just taking a look at the site and making some notes about just like some high level stuff that I see that I think you could spruce up with the site. Um, so my disclaimer is that I have done a lot of WordPress development, but that's was kind of a long time ago, and it's not really something that I do consistently anymore. But I do have a lot of like kind of high level knowledge about what best practices are, even if I don't necessarily know the nuts and bolts of how to implement those. Some of the like SEO strategies might have changed a little bit in the last couple years, but in general, I'm just going to give you some things to look for. So first and foremost, we have on the right side the standard desktop site, and on the left side, I'm just simulating a view of the mobile site. Everything that you do needs to be mobile first these days. The overwhelming majority of internet traffic from private individuals comes from mobile devices, and so both of these need to be right and correct, and they both need to work. But your priority needs to be the mobile version of the site. That's a principle in web design these days: mobile first, and it's absolutely critical. Both need to be correct, but if you prioritize the mobile site, typically by definition, when things are made to be mobile responsive, the desktop site generally falls in line as well. But absolutely the priority should be the mobile site. So in general, when we're talking about design, we're talking about not just like rote aesthetics, like how pleasing is it to look at. We're talking about usability. So things like the color scheme or the design of the logo, or like the quality of the photography, all of that is secondary to how well organized and how readable and how navigable your site is. So the first point that I'll make on that is that it all just in general looks a little bit cluttered. So here we have, on your landing page, we've got your logo, some text here, a boat in the background, some kind of a wave overlay to reinforce the ocean theme, a couple of buttons, and it all is just a bit much. So the text, the white text over top of the kind of off-white boat, it's just very busy and a little bit difficult to read. And obviously you have some overlapping elements here. It just needs to be kind of cleaned up a little bit, and well, I'll be more specific. You just need to get rid of a lot of stuff. I would absolutely get rid of all of these overlays. So if let's see, we can do it in real time. I think if we just delete this, I can't really show you exactly in real time what I would do, but you generally less is more. You don't need all of these elements to reinforce like the ocean going theme, because we absolutely get it. It's Ocean Sports is your name. It's obviously a boating outfit. We don't need any of the wavy design elements to reinforce that. Especially if what it results in is a lack of readability. So in general, less is more, and you want to make sure that you're kind of using all of your space smartly, so that it's I'm not articulating this well. You want all of the space that is visible in any given time to be as actionable as possible. So when we open up this splash page, we've got your logo, good for brand recognition. We've got this button here, which takes us to the rental page. right? That's good. We want to get them. We want to get them to the booking process as fast as possible. Let me back up. All right, so logo's good, button's good. This text, excuse me, let me get back to mobile. Responsive design mode. This text doesn't. First of all, it's not very readable, and it doesn't necessarily serve a purpose. You talk about every day's an adventure. I guess that's kind of your tagline. Award-winning cruises, glass bottom boat. It tells your audience what you have to offer. 5-star service with aloha, with classic Hawaiian hospitality. Reserve your adventure today. Call to action. All of those bullet points by themselves would be good to have, but I think you need to pick one of them. I would probably go with award-winning catamaran cruises, glass bottom boat cruises, and beach activities. 5-star service is a good thing to mention if you can back that up. But what this does is it tells us what ocean sports actually means, right? We're not going windsurfing or not going deep sea fishing. It's cruises. So I would probably delete everything except award-winning catamaran cruises, glass bottom boat, beach activities. And then this button is good to have. All cruises and rentals, because it gets you to your sales portal as fast as possible. These social icons, they are good to have, but I don't think that they need to float, and they certainly don't need to parallax scroll the way that they're doing. It's harder to tell on the desktop site, but on the mobile site, obviously it clashes with the text a little bit, but you can see as you scroll, its relative position changes. That's called a parallax scrolling feature, and it was kind of a trendy design choice a couple of years ago, and still is in a lot of places, but it doesn't really serve a purpose right here, and it even might harm you a little bit, because what these buttons do is they take you outside of the site, and what we want to do is funnel potential customers into the booking process. So here are my recommendations for these social icons. Lose the parallax scrolling, just make it static. All of these need to open in new tabs, and I think that they do. But just in case they don't, you definitely don't want your web page to close. Because that people can go back to the site, but you want to keep it open in maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but make sure that these all open in new tabs. So about these social links specifically, so Facebook is good to have, I suppose. Also Insta, TikTok, YouTube. These social icons should be here somewhere. But they should live actually at the bottom of the site, and I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Facebook you can keep. Google Maps you absolutely can keep, because even though it takes people out of the site, Google Maps actually functions as not just a map, but kind of a search engine for people. So when the logic behind having a Google Maps button is that, and having a presence on Google Maps at all, is that people who are, maybe at the resort and decide on day 4 of their vacation, hey, we'd actually like to go whale watching. It's very common for people to open up Google Maps and type in whale watching tours and just see what's in the area. So it's kind of a search engine in that respect. So it is absolutely good to let people know like where you are. So yeah, we can keep that button for sure. TripAdvisor, we absolutely can keep as well, because it apparently is also a sales portal, so that's good to have. And it also provides reviews. So you've got good reviews on TripAdvisor, so that's good brand reinforcement. We can keep TripAdvisor. Yelp is a bunch of shysters, dare I say gangsters, who exist to shake people down for money. And if you're not in too deep with Yelp at this point, I would highly recommend just, well, recommend is a difficult word. Yelp has been known to shake businesses down for like fees for their services, for their listings, and if you decide to part ways with them, it's pretty common that they will then prioritize negative reviews, and then charge you a fee to promote the positive reviews. It's total it's extortion. If your relationship with Yelp, if you're already in too deep with Yelp, I guess keep this button to avoid making them mad. But Yelp is awful. I guess that's just a kind of a soapbox thing. One extra social button that you should have, and it's a platform that here, we'll do it over here. If you're not on, Get Your Guide is it's up and coming, but it's also definitely here. It's a very popular platform for booking tours, like private tours of museums, or exactly what you do, which is like ocean tours. If you are, let's see, ocean sports, I don't think you're on here, but you absolutely should be, because this is a very popular booking platform that I would say is on the same level as TripAdvisor at this point. So a button for Get Your Guide is good to have because, again, it provides reviews and also is a sales portal. So those are the buttons that I would keep or ditch. But in general, I would keep all of these social buttons down here at the bottom. There's no reason, there's no reason that they need to be up here like this, especially because we just got to the site and we want to avoid people leaving the site before they have the opportunity to book. So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to, that I think is worth looking at is the layout of the navigation menu. So there's maybe a few too many pages on this site, which makes it a little bit more cumbersome to navigate than it really needs to be. So let me actually bring my notes over. And what's the best way? Yeah, we'll just stick to looking at the mobile site. So what I think a better layout for the menu would be this. So currently we have a whole bunch of sub menus, and really I think that like boat cruises and subdivided into snorkel, sunset, spooky Halloween, all of that can be kind of on the same like product gallery. It doesn't have to be split up into different categories. So if we go to boat cruises, we'll talk about the layout of this in a second, because I think this needs to be a little bit smaller, a little bit more condensed. But all boat cruises, private charters, and beach rentals, those three things should be their own menu items, and you don't need to subdivide from there. So this gets into the weeds of how like WordPress as a platform works, but it would require a lot of like reconfiguring. At least depending on the template you're using, it would require a fair bit of reconfiguring of how the individual pages are built, because menus, like main menus in WordPress, are like a significant part of the architecture of the site. That might mean something to you, it might not, but it's not a small task to change up these menus. But anyway, boat cruises, private charters, beach rentals, and then motorcycle rentals. Those are the only four things that need to be split up in the menu, because they are kind of four distinct categories of products, but you don't need to subdivide from there. And it will greatly simplify the navigation of your site if you can combine all of those. However, there are some things that I think can be subdivided. So the about pages, our fleet, I think, is important just to showcase like the boats that you have, because I think that's part of the curb appeal of your business is just, it's an interesting looking boat to tourists who don't see boats a lot. So that's, I would have that front and center. And then who we are, that can be kind of like your backstory. Your blog should definitely be its own section. And this would be like strictly just for SEO purposes. And also maybe a little bit of an FAQ, like, what should I bring on the boat? What do I take for seasickness? Whatever you think your customers might need. Make the blog immediately useful about the specific product that you sell. Don't make it necessarily about, it's not a whale blog. It's a blog about your cruises, if that makes sense. And then deals and special events, I think a separate page for like your coupons and special offerings. And then also that being the place where people can sign up for marketing emails and special deals and events. I would compartmentalize that into just one page. Reason being, it just helps the site be a little bit cleaner in terms of layout, so you don't have like your newsletter sign up acting like it's also maybe part of your contact page. You want deals and special events to live on its own page, so people know that where to search for coupons if you have them. And then also just as a menu item, it alerts people that you do have deals. It's worth advertising that yes, sometimes our things go on special, so maybe like pay attention to us. Your locations, when you click on it, it takes you to just a description of where it is. Both of these I think can be on one page. You don't actually have to split these up. This is really just for reference, so people know like how far they're going to have to drive to get on the boat. I think that's all that's really for. And then your contact page, contact us, and then job opportunities. I think those can be separate because they are like two totally separate business concerns. So that is how I would set up your menus. And then again, because of the way WordPress, like the architecture of WordPress on the back end, that would mean restructuring these pages, as a matter of fact. So it's not a small thing to change menu buttons, because you actually are changing the architecture of the site. I can go into more detail about that, but really that's just something for you to be aware, so that you know if you want to change this menu item, you're asking for kind of a lot of work from your web developer. It's not just adding and subtracting buttons. It's changing a lot of the way that the site is built on a fundamental level. So for the socials, we already talked about that. And then a small note, beach toy rentals. I'm a little bit confused about why I have to call in order to, I would think that beach toy rentals could just also just be a part of like your rental page. So I don't know if there's a business reason why it's like that, but that just sort of took me by surprise. And then also when you go to the beach toy rental page, so that's like a deal. Let's see, fun toy. Here we go. So your price list, this needs to not be a poster or not be an image. It needs to be a block of text that's actually laid out on the page, something that you can highlight, because that means that it's searchable. When you have searchable text, that is a bump to your SEO and like your site's searchability and visibility on search engines, because search engines in general can't read the text in images. They can only read the text when it's text, if that makes sense. So it all of your products and all of your your price lists need to be searchable text. And also, it's just not immediately apparent where to see the list of things that you have. When I'm browsing and I see a hyperlink in a block of text, my instinct is not that is going to bring up that item within the site. My instinct is that this is a link to something else, and so I'm not immediately going to click that. So it took me a minute to kind of know where it is that I could find things. And it turns out that they are down here, but when I click on beach toy rentals, I have to go down pretty far to know that those buttons are here, and that absolutely should be the first thing that I see. So out of everything that I just said, really that could be condensed down to, if we could get rid of this header, get rid of the background image, get rid of the block of text here, and just see this is all that this page needs to be. And that actually goes for pretty much all of the other product gallery pages as well. The sooner that I can see prices and packages, the better. So there's that. I think so. That's like a look at the organizational. My impression of the organization of the site. From an aesthetics point of view, again, it's a little bit too cluttered, and there's just a little bit too much going on, and that impacts the readability and, very importantly, the accessibility of the site. And this is probably the biggest piece of advice that I'm going to give you, because it actually is something you need to pay attention to. So good design is not necessarily just about what looks pleasing or what's enjoyable to look at or scroll around. It's about organization of information and making sure that it's readable, accessible, digestible by as broad of an audience as possible. And a good chunk of your audience is actually older people, like retired folks who are not that good at the internet, frankly. And if they come to this site and they have to deal with, a lot of clashing elements and white text on off-white, and it just becomes a little bit too much. And what you're selling with the design of this site is not the beauty of ocean going experiences and the waves and the colors. You're not selling us on that. You're selling us on the idea that we can give you an ocean going experience with as little hassle as possible. That's what this site is supposed to do. It's not supposed to convince me that the ocean is fun. It's supposed to convince me that you can get me whale watching with as little friction as possible. So if we can remove that friction, that's really the core of what a well-designed HawaiiOceansports.com website should be. But more critically than that, there actually is like a legal ramification of making sure that your site is accessible. There is the Americans with Disabilities Act that is extremely broad and has extremely sharp legal teeth, and that includes especially business websites. Websites, especially for businesses, have to be ADA compliant, and there are, let me find this, there are tools out there to evaluate the accessibility, the readability of your site. And it's not just, how easy is it to read text. There are website readers for sight impaired people that depend on all of this being organized in a very particular way. So if I use an app to read out text for me because I'm sight impaired and don't read that well, if this text doesn't fall within a certain hierarchy on the site, my screen reader is not going to work, and that's actually an ADA violation. And believe it or not, there's a recent trend of law firms scraping business websites for like their accessibility, their ADA compliance, and sites that like are found to have violations. They'll get caught up in lawsuits, and those law firms are winning those lawsuits. If we go to the WordPress subreddit and we search for ADA, ADA lawsuit. ADA lawsuit. So there's people asking about ADA compliance plugins. I'm really not in the WordPress scene that much anymore, but I do pay attention to this subreddit, and people are talking about frivolous or otherwise lawsuits being filed against businesses because these evaluation tools are being used to see if you're in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so I actually installed one of the plugins. Let's see, let's go to the home page. Plugins, accessible web, let's scan. And again, I'm a little bit out of practice, and so I don't necessarily know how important all of these are, but I do know that if you're not paying attention to this, this can be a headache for you down the road. So your web developer who put this together is probably aware of this, and it's something that I want to bring to your attention that actually is really important. Good design is not just about making it look pretty, it's about making it accessible to an extremely wide audience, including people who use accessibility tools. You never ever want to alienate any subset of your potential client base because maybe they don't see that well or can't use the internet that well. I would think that a good chunk of people booking these trips are grandpa who doesn't see that well buying a cruise for his grandson and grandson's new wife for their wedding gift or something like that. So we want to make it as readable and as clutter-free as possible, making sure that it's in the process like ADA compliant. And that'll avoid you some potential litigation, and also just make the site look better in general. So, if there's any other opinions I have about like the look or how things are laid out, doesn't really matter. As long as you're making it organized, very accessible, making it as few clicks as possible to get to a sales opportunity. Everything else is a distant second in terms of priority. So, all right, I think that's all I got. All of these things that I said are things that I probably could implement. But again, I've been kind of not that deep in the WordPress game for a while now. And so it would probably take me twice as long to do all of this as opposed to somebody who does it every day. So all right, I hope that's helpful perspective. If you have any other questions, just give me a call. So all right.